He's an author, a speaker, a trainer, and a humorist. Please welcome Ron Price. Woo!
I'm an expert. And I can say that with confidence because I used to be a pert, but I'm not anymore. So by definition, I am an expert. All right, that's enough Ron foolery. Hi, I'm Ron Price, and I am considered to be an expert, at least in the field of conflict management. For the last 30 plus years of my life, I've been a mediator. For 30 plus years, I have put myself between people who were at odds with each other, and if that doesn't tell you I'm a sick man, I don't know what will. But it's always been a great joy to see people who came into my office bitter, hostile, oppositional, leave not necessarily best buds, but their differences were lessened. They were able to talk with each other, not at each other. And I was able to help facilitate that process. It was gratifying. It still is, for that matter. But based on my mediation training and experience, I've looked into the field of conflict management. I've authored 3 books in my Play Nice in Your Sandbox series. I've put together some online video courses. I've developed 10 workshops that I can deliver in a variety of formats, lengths, and so forth, all around the theme of helping people to get along, to play nice in the sandbox, get along well with others. And at the end of the day, although I'm awful tired of that expression, isn't that what life's really all about? Getting along with those we work with, we live with, we associate with on a regular basis. So I fashion my training and my speaking on relationship or workplace CPR, where CPR stands for conflict prevention and resolution. Notice I didn't say conflict avoidance. Some people try to avoid conflict. That's a mistake. It doesn't work, and it usually makes matters worse, not better. But a lot of conflicts can be prevented. The trivial, the insignificant, can I say the stupid little things that if we're not careful can escalate out of hand and take on a life of their own and occupy way too much of our time, our energy, our resources. I like to say not only were they not a hill to die on, they weren't a hill to get sick on, and yet there we are. And you know what I'm talking about. It's happened to all of us. Conflict can be prevented much of the time. Other times, conflict needs to be resolved, and that's a whole different skill set. You know, most people say they dread conflict. I think I saw a statistic, 67% of Americans say they dread conflict. I think that figure's probably a little low, but how many of those 67% have ever been trained, equipped in, again, how to prevent conflict, how to resolve conflict? I have to tell you, what I teach is not rocket science, or in the words of that inimitable philosopher, Paris Hilton, she was being interviewed one time and she told the person, she said, you know, it's not like I'm a rocket surgeon. Apparently not. What I teach on, what I speak on is not rocket surgery. It's common sense, but common sense is not always, common practice. So if you've got a work team that could benefit from having me come in and do some training, giving them tools, tips, techniques, skills to prevent or resolve conflict, let's talk together. If you have participants at a conference you're putting together, I may just be your guy to come and give them a presentation that they're going to thank you for bringing me in. And one last point I want to make. Everything I do with healthy doses of humor. This is bad grammar, but I can't not inject humor, appropriate humor, into everything I speak on or train on. With all due respect to Mary Poppins, I believe that a little bit of laughter helps the learning go down. So again, if you'd like your people to have more peace and joy, less strife and grief, let's talk. I'm confident we can put something together that'll be a win for you and your people. Conflict. What a scary word. And yet, who among us lives without conflict? I like to say that conflict is inevitable, but damaged relationships, poor morale, low productivity, those are all optional. And in fact, if people can learn how to manage conflict productively, conflict can be a positive experience in their lives. But again, when you ask people, what do you think about conflict, most people are going to say, oh, no, I don't like it. Well, that's probably because they've had episodes in their life where conflict wasn't handled well, and it cost them. It cost them a relationship or an opportunity, something harmful, negative. They have a bad connotation, a bad taste in their mouth about conflict. So I want to share with you a tip right now that I promise you is going to help you to prevent conflict when that's the appropriate move, or even to resolve conflict on occasion. I think this is one that can serve both purposes. It's called Be Disruptive. And I love to do this teaching because I got into a lot of trouble when I was young for being disruptive, and now as an adult, I advocate be disruptive. Here's how it works. You're in a conversation with someone else that isn't going well. It's getting heated. It's getting more attacking each other. Nobody's listening to each other. It's not productive. Here's all you got to do. So you know what? Hold on. I all of a sudden have a need for some fresh air. How about if we step outside? Let's go for a walk, and we'll talk about this on the way. You're disrupting the negative flow of that conversation. You get outside, you simply say, you know what, that conversation was going nowhere good. Let's start another one. We need to understand each other. You go first. Talk to me civilly, please. Talk to me respectfully, but I promise I'm going to listen to you with the goal of understanding you, and hopefully you'll return the favor when it's my turn. Again, disrupt the negative, because it's not going to get better on its own. You're having a dust-up with your teenager. Just say, you know what, hold on, man. All of a sudden, I got a hankering for some ice cream. How about if we hop in the car, drive down, and get us an ice cream cone? Disrupt the negative, get in the car, have a do-over. Hey, we need to understand each other. You go first. Tell you something about conflict. Quite often, if not, I'm not going to give you a percentage, but very much most of the time, it's because two or more people are trying to be understood at the same time. And so they're talking. Well, if everyone's talking, who's listening? Obviously, the answer is nobody. And if nobody's listening, who's understanding? So be disruptive. It'll help you to prevent a lot of conflicts, and by having an engaging conversation, you might just be able to resolve whatever the differences have been that have come between you. You ever have anybody push your buttons? Only on days that have a Y in them, right? We've all had that experience, and it's not fun. Here's a teaching that I love to give called button guard. Button guard. 3 steps. First, who pushes your buttons? And I don't want names, and please don't point at somebody in the audience. But what types of people push your buttons? Misers, braggarts, know-it-alls. That's one of my personal ones. I have to tell you right now, the people who think they know it all are awful annoying to those of us who really do. Okay, bad. Identify who pushes your buttons. And then you give them a name. And I'm going to counsel you to give them a polite name, because it might slip out in public sometime, and I don't want you to be embarrassed. You identify them, you give them a name, and then you own them. Not in a negative way in any way. You have more control over their ability to push your buttons, because you can't prevent people from pushing your buttons. You can deactivate the switch. Let me tell you real quickly how this maybe saved my life. That might be over dramatic. I don't think so. I drive faster than I ought to. And I often find myself in the left lane of traffic coming up behind a vehicle who's driving slower than I wish them to drive. So I'll just flash my high beams, which is my way of saying, hello, neighbor, I hope you're having a nice day. By the way, I wish to drive faster, would you? Would you please pull over to the right? Because the law does say slower traffic, keep right. And many times they would pull right over, and I'd just speed up, I'd give them a hearty wave and go on my way. Many times they would not pull over. I'd say, you didn't see me. I'd flash one more time. God help them if they don't pull over that time. Because I would. I would pull over, I would speed up, I'd get just past them, I'd pull back right in front of them, and depending on how angry and stupid I was at the moment, I would certainly take my foot off the gas. I may or may not put it right on the brake. Now, stay with me. What's my blood pressure doing at that moment? It's going up. What are my teeth doing? Making my dentist happy is what they're doing. What's my blood pressure doing? I have worked myself into a tizzy over somebody who's not driving the way I think they should drive. And by the way, I live in New Mexico. You can drive any way you want in New Mexico. That's not very bright. I learned this technique of button guard. And I'm telling you the truth. I realize people who drive in the left lane slower than I wish them to push my buttons. I gave them a name. Would you like to hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lefty La Lane. Huh? It's got a nice ring to it. It kind of rolls off the tongue. It's not insulting. Lefty La Lane. And Lefty gets around. Lefty is sometimes male, sometimes female, sometimes old, sometimes young, sometimes drives a Harley, sometimes an F-150. Lefty gets around. But I'm telling you the absolute truth. For the last 25, 30 years, I come up behind somebody driving slower than I wish them to. I will signal one time. If they do not pull over, I have conditioned myself to say, Ron, you found Lefty. Signal right, pull over, speed up, and go on your way. What are my teeth doing? What's my blood pressure doing? Do you hear what I'm saying? I own Lefty. Lefty no longer owns me. I promise you, button guard is going to spare you a lot of grief. Try it and find out for yourself.